Have you ever wondered what happens when a narcissist realizes they've lost control over someone they thought they could manipulate indefinitely? It's a common scenario that plays out in toxic relationships, yet the consequences can be surprising, even to those who think they understand narcissistic behavior. Imagine being the person who walks away from a narcissist for good. What do you think will happen next? Well, brace yourself, because what you're about to discover could completely change your perspective on narcissistic personalities forever. In today's video, we're going to dive deep into what happens when a narcissist realizes you're no longer in their life. You won't believe how they react, and how their behavior could completely take you by surprise. Trust me, by the end of this, you'll gain insight into the intricate world of narcissism, and you'll finally understand the manipulative tactics they use when they feel like they've lost control. Before we dive into the details, make sure to hit that subscribe button, like this video, and share it with someone who could benefit from hearing this. You won't want to miss out on understanding this often overlooked psychological phenomenon. Ready? Let's get started. Narcissists are often characterized by an inflated sense of self-importance, but that's only one side of the story. A narcissist's craving for admiration and validation from others is endless. They don't simply want recognition, they need it to fuel their sense of worth. In relationships, their primary goal isn't necessarily to build genuine love or mutual respect, but rather to maintain control over the other person in order to keep their ego consistently fed. This means that their relationships often operate as a power dynamic, where the narcissist's need for superiority takes center stage. When a narcissist realizes they've lost control over someone, their reaction can be intense. It's not just a matter of a relationship ending. It feels like an existential crisis for them. Their world, which revolves around their ability to manipulate and maintain power, is suddenly flipped upside down. This loss of control is something that the narcissist isn't equipped to handle emotionally, and it triggers a profound sense of panic and confusion. The moment you walk away and set boundaries, the narcissist experiences a dramatic shift in their reality. To them, it's more than just a breakup or the end of a relationship. It's a blow to their sense of identity. Narcissists often derive their self-worth from others, and when they no longer have a hold on you, they are left grappling with a deep sense of insecurity and frustration. For you, walking away might feel like a necessary step to regain your own peace and sense of self. The relief you feel is the result of breaking free from the toxic cycle. But for the narcissist, this sudden loss can feel like the ground beneath them has crumbled. Their immediate reaction might range from anger and frustration to attempts at manipulation, or even guilt-tripping, in a desperate bid to restore their control. What's important to understand is that the narcissist's reaction to someone walking away is not something they take lightly. The emotional turmoil they experience may seem extreme, because their entire worldview depends on their ability to dominate others. Their response is a reflection of how threatened they feel by the loss of control, and it's rarely predictable. When a narcissist comes to the realization that they've lost someone who they considered an essential part of their supply chain, the first thing they'll likely do is enter what psychologists call the hoovering phase. This is when they attempt to pull you back into their web of manipulation, often using a variety of tactics to get you to return. These can range from sincere-sounding apologies to promises of change, or even emotional blackmail. They might tell you they can't live without you, or that you're the only one who truly understands them. But why do they do this? Well, it's because their self-worth is entirely dependent on external validation. Losing someone they thought was a steady source of admiration shakes their fragile ego to its core. It's not about missing you as a person, it's about the loss of control over a source of narcissistic supply. And if they can't hoover you back in immediately, the next step is usually anger. A narcissist's anger isn't your typical frustration or resentment. Instead, it's a primal reaction that stems from a profound sense of humiliation and rejection. When they're unable to regain control over you, their anger often turns into vindictive actions. These can include things like smear campaigns, where they attempt to ruin your reputation, spreading lies or rumors about you to others, or trying to paint you as the villain in the relationship. Essentially, they'll do whatever it takes to regain their power and prove to themselves that they can still control the narrative. But here's the twist. What happens when their efforts to hoover you back in or destroy you fail? At this point, something even more surprising happens. Narcissists often shift into what can only be described as a cold indifference. They may discard you completely, moving on to someone else to feed their ego. This indifference is a defense mechanism, a way to protect their fragile sense of self. It's not that they've truly forgotten about you or don't care. It's just that, for them, the relationship was never about you. It was always about how they could benefit from it. And for those of us on the receiving end of a narcissistic relationship, this phase can be the hardest part. After the emotional highs and lows, seeing a narcissist suddenly act as if you never mattered to them can feel like a slap in the face. But remember, this is just another form of manipulation. Their coldness isn't a reflection of your worth. It's a desperate attempt to maintain control over their own emotional state. But let's not forget, narcissists are often stuck in a never-ending cycle. When one source of supply is no longer available, they'll move on to the next one. They may try to replace you with someone who can provide the validation they crave. And while this new person might temporarily satisfy their needs, it's unlikely to last long. Narcissists are always chasing after the next big thing, the next person who can make them feel special. And it's rare that they ever experience true, lasting fulfillment. They're like emotional vampires, constantly draining the energy of those around them, without ever truly satisfying their own emptiness. At the end of the day, it's important to recognize that narcissists are deeply insecure individuals who rely on external validation to feel good about themselves. When you walk away, you disrupt their carefully constructed world, and they don't know how to handle that. But in their eyes, you're just one more source of validation that slipped through their fingers. They may act like they've moved on, but deep down, they're still desperately seeking out someone else to fill that void. So, when a narcissist realizes you're gone, they go through a series of emotional reactions, ranging from desperation to anger to cold indifference. It's a process driven by their own insecurities and need for control. And while you might be tempted to engage with them, or feel guilty for leaving, remember that your well-being should always come first. You deserve to be in a relationship where you're valued for who you are, not just for what you can give to someone else. Thank you so much for sticking with me through this deep dive into the complex world of narcissism. If this video resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever experienced something like this in a relationship? Drop your comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. Stay strong, and remember, you're worth more than the mind games and manipulations of any narcissist. Have you ever wondered what happens when a narcissist realizes they've lost control over someone they thought they could manipulate indefinitely? It's a common scenario that plays out in toxic relationships, yet the consequences can be surprising, even to those who think they understand narcissistic behavior. Imagine being the person who walks away from a narcissist for good. What do you think will happen next? Well, brace yourself, because what you're about to discover could completely change your perspective on narcissistic personalities forever. In today's video, we're going to dive deep into what happens when a narcissist realizes you're no longer in their life. You won't believe how they react, and how their behavior could completely take you by surprise. Trust me, by the end of this, you'll gain insight into the intricate world of narcissism, and you'll finally understand the manipulative tactics they use when they feel like they've lost control. Before we dive into the details, make sure to hit that subscribe button, like this video, and share it with someone who could benefit from hearing this. You won't want to miss out on understanding this often overlooked psychological phenomenon. Ready? Let's get started. Narcissists are often characterized by an inflated sense of self-importance. But that's only one side of the story. A narcissist's craving for admiration and validation from others is endless.